Hello everyone, I'm Darío Aguilar peregrina and with my host Stacy Hawks. Hola amigos, estamos de regreso aquí en otra edición más de Literatura Actual. Soy Darío Aguilar peregrina y como siempre Stacy Hawks acompañándonos. El día de hoy, amigos y amigas, vamos a tratar este tema de las novelas de fantasía. Today we're going to talk about fantasy novels. So hopefully you like today's program. Hi Stacy again.
Hi Dario, it's good to be here.
Oh, excellent Stacy. I'm also excited to be here again. Amigos y amigas, empezamos entonces este gran programa porque sin duda tocamos un tema que a mí me encanta mucho. Everyone, this topic, I'm really big fan of this. I love fantasy novels, so we're going to talk about a little bit about. So, ready, Stacy? Because the first question is coming.
I'm ready.
Okay, Stacy, why fantasy novels are so popular? ¿Por qué las novelas de fantasía son tan populares? Please tell us, Stacy.
It's a form of escape. It's, look, I write historical fiction, and I'll admit that some books, even those books, can be sometimes academically dense to where you're learning more about the history or the culture of a region. You're not really so busy engulfing yourself in the wonder of the world that these characters inhabit. You're not world building. You're not doing all these fantastic things. The fantasy includes magic and mystical creatures and beings that we only get to see and hear or read about or watch a movie about, when it's based on that genre. So it's also, a genre that's for all ages, and you can read fantasy as a kid, as a young adult, or as an adult and just enjoy the heck out of it.
Absolutely, Stacy. Amigos y amigas, Stacy nos acaba de comentar de que por qué estas novelas son tan populares y tiene un buen punto. A final de cuentas es una forma de escapismo, es una forma de ver diferentes las cosas y que afortunadamente este tipo de novelas son muy accesibles para todos públicos, desde la infancia hasta la adultez. Y pues tenemos muchísimos ejemplos de adaptaciones que ahorita vamos a tocar y por supuesto pues esta pasión, ¿no? On my case, Stacy, yeah, fantasy novels, absolutely. I loved them since I was a kid. The first fantasy novel I remember reading was Peter Pan. Peter Pan was the first one I read, the Disney version, and also I really loved reading the fantasy novel of the Chronicles of Narnia. The Chronicles of Narnia. I think it was a really great introduction to this world also, and it was fun because, as you say, it's a form of escapism, but also I think it's a form of reflection of the society, maybe because you sometimes put the elves, the orcs, all those creatures that represent something in our everyday life, I think. Amigos y amigas, le acabo de comentar a Stacy que sin duda yo coincido completamente. Estas novelas son más que escapismo, nos llevan a reflexionar a veces en la vida, ¿no? Y nos permiten conocer personajes, exponer estas situaciones de la vida con la actualidad a través de estas criaturas fantásticas, ¿no es así? Y bueno, en mi caso, pues fueron las Crónicas de Narnia y Peter Pan, que fueron mis primeras novelas de fantasía. Stacy, on your case, what authors you think represent best these stories? ¿Qué autores representan mejor estas historias?
You mentioned one of them there, C.S. Lewis. He's, a great fantasy writer, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and, all of his, that entire series is really great. J.R.R. Tolkien for The Lord of the Rings, of course. That's a great fantasy novel to start out with. And, J.K. Rowling came out with Harry Potter, of course, and I think everybody from all ages really enjoyed that series, regardless if they were a kid or an adult or a young adult. Some of us grew up with Harry Potter, But there's a new author that I've been reading for a while, and her name is Deborah Harkness, and she's really stepped onto that stage with her historical fiction fantasy series that started with the discovery of witches. So it combines magical fantasy with historical intrigue, and it's really fun to see that genre growing, because now not only is historical fiction for just historical fiction purposes, now it can go into fantasy as well as romance and other things.
Of course, Daisy. Amigos y amigas, Stacy nos acaba de comentar de que, bueno, pues hay muchos escritores, de ejemplo, C.S. Lewis, que representan este género. Tenemos a Jane Barrie, tenemos a J.R.R. Tolkien, un gran ejemplo con El Señor de los Anillos. Tenemos, por supuesto, a la gran J.K. Rowling, que escribió Harry Potter. Pues todos crecimos con este tipo de historias. Y también nos recomienda mucho a Deborah Harkness. Deborah Harkness is the name, ¿no, Stacy?
Yes.
The author you're recommending. Stacy nos recomienda a Deborah Harkness, una nueva escritora que combina esta fantasía con esta ficción histórica. Se les recomendamos muchísimo. Chéquenlo, por favor, ahí en Google. Es muy buena escritora y, por supuesto, pues pueden preguntarle también a Stacy en su programa de Writing World. On my case, Stacy, of course, I agree with these authors you tell us. J.K. Rowling is the biggest example. I really love Harry Potter as a kid. I love it more the movies than the books, that's a personal opinion, no?
We share a birthday, actually. Me and me and the author of Harry Potter share a birthday, so that's really fun.
That's a coincidence. No, absolutely coincidence. No, that's great, Stacy. But well, on my case, again, J.K. Rowling, I think it's the biggest one of my inspirations when writing this kind of fantasy novels. But also, I really loved the other worlds of J.M. Barrie from Peter Pan, because Neverland, it's a really great example of a difference between the real world and the fantasy one. Neverland is a place where children don't grow, and the real world, it's scary. So I really love that comparison in the movies and also in the book. So yeah, o sea, those authors really represent that, ¿no? En mi caso, amigos y amigas, le comento a Stacy que pues sí, o sea, sin duda J.M. Barrie, J.K. Rowling, que insistimos, es un gran ejemplo de estos escritores de fantasía. Y bueno, you are going to hate me, Stacy, but we are missing one example of these fantasy novels. I don't really like it, but we talked about last edition. It's Stephanie Meyer. Stephanie Meyer again with Twilight, because it's fantasy at the end of the day and love stories, no? So Twilight, again, it's not the best, but has this example of fantasy novels: the werewolf, the vampire, the setting. It's magical, but at the same time not magical. At the end of the day, that's a fantasy novel, ¿no? Amigos y amigas, y bueno, pues también pues, hay que reconocerlo, Stephanie Meyer, con Crepúsculo, pues es una historia de fantasía. O sea, tienes al hombre lobo, al vampiro guapísimo, y estas situaciones de amor también, pues se sienten, ¿no? Entonces, pues a final de cuentas, eso representan los autores. Stacy, on another question, what are the common themes this kind of novels touch? ¿Cuáles son los temas que más tocan estas novelas?
You touched on one of them there. It's love. Love is a big theme. So is good versus evil, man versus nature, or man versus himself. I mean, you know, got great examples in that within the discovery of witches, as well as C.S. Lewis's novels and Harry Potter, of course. So yeah, it's all about discovering, or even discovering the love of one's own gifts. That could be a thing as well. That was also a theme in the discovery of witches. There's also the epic journey, such as that we see with Lord of the Rings. And there's nothing like having a good outing with friends that creates a great plot line like that of J.R.R. Tolkien.
Of course, Daisy. Well, en nuestro caso nos comenta Stacy, amigos y amigas, o sea, a final de cuentas, pues sí, los temas que vemos más en este tipo de novelas, pues son el amor, el hombre contra la naturaleza, estas cosas que nos hacen conectar con estas criaturas mágicas, ¿no? A final de cuentas. Y bueno, pues tenemos a J.R. Tolkien, que es el gran ejemplo con El Señor de los Anillos. With J.R.R. Tolkien, Stacy, I think the thing that best worked with these stories was the mythology that J.R.R. introduced, because it's so vast, so incredible. I'm not the biggest fan of the Lord of Rings, but I remember when my cousins and my family really talk about these books and how they were amazed with the way of the story that was created by this man that really created another language also for these novels. how this world is so expansive that we have a lot of adaptations of the Lord of the Rings until today. So it's really great, no? This kind of works really can be malleable to other genres. We have love, we have action. Another example, Stacy, of these novels with other themes, I think, is I don't know if you have seen the movie Snow White and the Huntsman. It's an example of an action and fantasy world. Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland is another example. Alice in Wonderland is a great example of by Lewis Carroll of fantasy, and also another novel that I think touched this very good is Santa Claus. The stories of Santa Claus. We have a lot of Santa Claus novels that touch the Christmas village and other things, ¿no? But at the end of the day, it's fantasy. Amigos y amigas, le comento a Stacy que pues sí, este género es tan moldeable, tan vasto, que te puedes imaginar cualquier cosa y al final de cuentas, pues sigues las categorías de lo que es una novela de, de este tipo de fantasía, ¿no? Tenemos a J.R. Tolkien, que sin duda pues, nos expandió su mundo, que sus adaptaciones se siguen viendo al día de hoy. Y por supuesto, tenemos cómo estas historias nos llevan a nuevos mundos. And now, Stacy, the next question before I think we're going on a break. What is your general opinion about this genre? ¿Cuál es tu opinión general sobre este género?
Well, I love this genre if it's well written and if the stories can draw you in. Fantasy is a lot like writing. It's about imagination and building characters and worlds for our readers, regardless if they're real places or completely made up, in my opinion. There's a great deal of similarities between writing and fantasy. Both are filled with adventure, passion, excitement, and yes, magic. It's really magical to write a book. We both know this.
Of course, absolutely. Amigos y amigas, pues a final de cuentas, su opinión general de Stacy sobre estas historias, pues es que son tan bien hechas algunas, están tan bien desarrolladas también, y por supuesto, a final de cuentas, lo que nos importa es meternos en la historia. At the end of the day, Stacy, what matters is how, again, the author brings you their world to your imagination. How your imagination and theirs combine, and you create a perfect storm of creativity and also enjoying these books. On my case, with the Chronicles of Narnia, I don't know if you remember, the last battle in the book, they only tell us a little bit about the battle. They only touch it for a bit. But in the movie, they really expanded that part of the battle against the witch. And I really like that because it was depending of the reader what was their opinion about the book. On my case, for example, with J.K. Rowling, with Harry Potter, again, I really loved the adaptations, but I also appreciated the books. In one scene, for example, I don't know if you have seen it, it's with the meme of Harry, did you put your name in the goblet of fire? That is a meme, because in the book, Dumbledore says calmly, did you put the name of the goblet of fire? And in the movie, the actor literally screams and shouts, Harry, if he put his name. So I think it's a nice comparison, because at the end of the day, well, it's your interpretation. If the creator of the movie saw Dumbledore screaming and shouting, well, in the book it was different, ¿no? Amigos y amigas, le comento a Stacy, pues que a final de cuentas, la opinión de este género yo también coincido, o sea, es sobre este mundo, estos mundos que nos llevan, estas historias épicas que tenemos. Y bueno, pues en mi caso yo tengo el caso particular de que también el lector le da esta interpretación a la historia al leerla, ¿no? Por ejemplo, yo con las Crónicas de Narnia lo recuerdo. En la película vimos cómo se hace una batalla épica y en el libro realmente lo toca muy poco. Con Harry Potter, pues vemos cómo Dumbledore en el libro le dice calmadamente, pusiste tu nombre en el cáliz de fuego, y en la película literalmente Dumbledore lo quiere ahorcar. Entonces son comparaciones, ¿no? Amigos y amigas, creo que vamos a ir ya a una pausa comercial. Sí, y ahorita regresamos. We're returning, we're on a commercial break. Ahora estamos de regreso, amigos y amigas. Creo que Stacy se desconectó un ratito, pero bueno, a final de cuentas, seguimos comentando sobre este tipo de historias, de estas novelas fantásticas, ¿no? Y a final de cuentas queremos crear estas perspectivas con la vida real. Hi, Stacy again. We're back in Literatura today.
Hi, welcome back, everyone.
Okay, thank you. We're going to continue with these questions. Now I'm going to ask you, Stacy. Ahora quiero preguntarle, amigos y amigas, a Stacy, what are your favorite adaptations of these stories? ¿Cuáles son tus adaptaciones favoritas de estas historias?
So I've been talking about it a little bit this evening, but I don't really think it's not really a movie, but it was more of a series for TV, The Discovery of Witches television series. It was well done from the books, I thought, and although some things were left out, they still touched on much needed aspects from the book, which is always great. As an author, you like to see your stuff come to life on the big screen or the small screen in some cases, but you like it done just so. The characters are really relatable, and they weaved history and magic together, so that was great. I'm also an Outlander fan, so I don't know if you've seen Outlander or know Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, but that's a great fantasy / historical fiction series as well. And it's been a great thing to see on the small screen on TV. But on the big screen, I think, I don't know if you've seen it either, but Fantastic Beasts, the Harry Potter spinoff series, those movies are pretty well done, I thought. I've seen 2. I haven't seen the 3rd one. And I hear there's a 4th coming.
No, okay. Well, in my case, Stacy, I really think the Fantastic Beasts series. I love the first one. The second one, not too much, but the third one, I think was okay. The fourth one, I didn't know it was coming. I remember that HBO announced that it's going to be a reboot, or I don't know. It's not confirmed yet. Amigos y amigas, Stacy acaba de comentarnos sus adaptaciones favoritas y nos recomienda muchos series como Un descubrimiento de brujas, A Discovery of Witches, que lo pueden checar en Sky One, en Sky Max también. Otra recomendación también que ella nos hizo, Outlander. With Outlander, Stacy, I'm going to tell you, my mom and I are big fans. My mom especially loves the main character of Outlander. She has seen everything of that series. If you touch the theme of Outlander, my mom is going to be crazy because she really loves the story. And Darío, when is going to be the next season? I'm really excited. So it's a big fan. And I agree. Con Outlander estoy de acuerdo completamente. Esa serie está también muy buena. Y también nos da, pues, ejemplo, también Stacy de Animales Fantásticos, ¿no? Con Animales Fantásticos le digo a Stacy que me encantó la primera, la segunda no tanto, la tercera ya creo que fue un poco mejor, pero pues aparentemente ya no iba a haber cuarta entrega porque pues HBO iba a hacer un reboot de todo. On my case, Stacy, with my favorite adaptations of this, well, I already talked. The Chronicles of Narnia, the first book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is my favorite, is my childhood film of Disney that I really love. The second one, The Prince Caspian, a famous Mexican actor called Damian Alcázar acted in that movie as Lord Sebastian, I remember. And another adaptation that I really loved of fantasy, of course, Harry Potter. It's my childhood. I remember, Stacy, every year a new Harry Potter that was in the movies. I remember my mom and my aunt always brought me to the movies to see the new one. And I really love it. I really love it because I was a big fan of those movies. And those movies inspired me to write my Three Wise Young Men saga. So I really love that, no? Other example of adaptations that I really loved, Stacy, well, it was also it's animation. American Dragon on Disney Channel. I really loved American Dragon. Jake Long, and also I love the Life and Chronicles of Juniper Lee in Cartoon Network. I really love those fantasy series. And a Christmas one, well, the Santa Claus with Tim Allen. I really love that trilogy, and the series, the new one, I am watching it on Disney Plus. Le comento, amigas y amigas, a Stacy que, bueno, pues, mis favoritas, Harry Potter, sin duda. Harry Potter, de hecho, fue una gran inspiración para los jóvenes Reyes Magos, mi saga que yo escribí. También series animadas de fantasía, Jake Long, Dragón Occidental, lo amaba en Disney Channel. Y, por supuesto, las vida y aventuras de Juniper Lee, también lo adoraba bastante en Cartoon Network. Stacy, another question for this program. What is your advice for writing this type of novels? ¿Cuál es tu consejo para aquellos que están escribiendo estas historias?
So first of all, hats off to anybody that can write fantasy, because I mean, I can't do it. So I mean, you're already a step ahead of me if you can do this. But my advice to any writer wanting to write this genre and publish would be to have fun with it. You know, just have fun with this genre. I think that's what a lot of the other authors in the genre have done. J.K. Rowling made it fun for kids to think about a train that can appear out of nowhere and swoop you away to a land full of wizards and slitherings and all that good stuff, and Quidditch. So too did Lord of the Rings. And like I said before, there's nothing like having an epic adventure with friends, right? So just have fun with it and use various themes. It's a genre that I got to become more familiar with through the writing community, and I'm glad that I did, because it's really opened up a lot of different doors for me to the writing community. And I look forward to I've always liked having fantasy writers on the podcast, and hope that will continue in some way, shape, or form.
Of course, Stacy, and I really love those writers. And Stacy, on the topic of this writing, does Deborah told you something about what was her process when writing this, Stacy? ¿Cuál el proceso de esas historias que Deborah te dijo?
Are you talking about Deborah Harkness?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would imagine she just, she's just a phenomenal writer. Took a story that was not quite what you would imagine and turned it into something really, really cool. And it was about all the different creatures and how the creatures lost their magic along the way and start to lose their magic. And it's up to this witch Diana and her vampire friend to sort of bring the magic back into the creatures and into the world. So it's really a fun story. I mean, it's a great read, great trilogy. I suggest it to anyone who likes witches and vampires and that kind of thing, but it's kind of a more adult version of Twilight.
Ok. Amigos y amigas, vamos a otra pausa comercial. We're on a commercial break, pero regresamos de nuevo.
Curso intensivo de podcast en G-Dance Academy, 100% online, 2 módulos, certificación digital, aula virtual, producción, edición, marketing, monetización y grabación. Curso intensivo de podcast en G-Dance Academy, plataforma educativa online. Y estamos de regreso, amigas y amigas, en este último bloque de literatura actual. We're back, friends, for the last topic on this great program of Literature Today. Estábamos hablando, Stacy y yo, sobre estos consejos, y Stacy nos comentó antes de la pausa que, por ejemplo, con el proceso de Deborah Harkness, ella lo que hacía es conectar estos personajes fantásticos como vampiros y estas criaturas a diferentes situaciones cotidianas, ¿no? Entonces, esas situaciones son los que hacen que funcione una historia. También igualmente Stacy nos comentó que, bueno, a final de cuentas, ella ha tenido la oportunidad de tener en su podcast y The Writing Wall Podcast, un gran podcast, se los recomendamos muchísimo, estos escritores que sin duda te dan diferentes perspectivas de las historias, ¿no? Al mismo tiempo, bueno, ella no les podía dar tanto consejo, nos comentó, pues porque ella está más enfocada en otro género, pero sin duda, si ustedes hacen estas historias, a final de cuentas, lo que importa es su imaginación. And I agree, Stacy, with the imagination thing. Imagine these things, create your own mythology when writing these kind of novels. In my example, Stacy, with the Three Wise Young Men saga that I'm writing, Los Jóvenes Reyes Magos, I really based my knowledge in the tradition here in Mexico and Latin America of the Three Wise Men that bring gifts to the children every January 6th, and also the tradition of the famous Rosca de Reyes. The famous Rosca de Reyes is a kind of a bread, Stacy, that has some toys inside. And if you get a toy of plastic, it means you are going to give us a party every February 2nd. And also you are going to bring the tamales. The tamales is the famous dish from Mexico. So every time that there is celebration of the Three Wise Men in Mexico, many people don't want the toy to appear
in their part of the bread because they don't want to cook the tamales for the next occasion, no? And that's one thing I based that. And also, when I wrote this series, Stacy, I really love to include other mythologies, not only the Mexican one, the Latino one of this story, but also the Scandinavian, the German, the American with Santa Claus, the Russian with Sneguroshka, that is the princess that brings the gifts to the children in Russia. Russia. I really thought that was very interesting. From Iceland with Tomte, that is a tradition also, that the one that brings gifts to the children. And also, I really love including Arabic and African mythology with the creators of there in my novels. And in the third one that I'm writing right now, it's going to include more African culture, inspired in Black Panther, because I really love that. And also the story that I wrote with the three wisdom men, it's inspired in American Dragon and Juniper Lee because I really love those shows growing as a kid. Amigos y amigas, le comento a Stacy que al escribir este tipo de historias, sin duda, la imaginación es lo que cuenta, volvemos a lo mismo, y sobre todo, pues tener esta pasión por hacerlas, ¿no? Con los jóvenes Reyes Magos le comento que yo sí investigué mucho, no solamente las tradiciones que tenemos aquí en Latinoamérica, sino también otras tradiciones de otros países, como lo son Estados Unidos, Rusia, países europeos en general, con diferentes metodologías como la de Sneuroshka, la princesa Sneuroshka, o le puse yo las harinas Sneuroshka, y también, por supuesto, con Tomte de Islandia y otros países. Stacy, the last question for finishing this program that I really enjoyed today. Stacy, in your opinion, what is the best indie author that you have met that writes the best fantasy novels right now? That is your opinion. ¿Cuál es tu opinión de los escritores independientes ahorita en la actualidad que crees que tengan la mejor literatura de fantasía?
Oh my goodness. we've had quite a few. There was a lady that wrote, I think her book is called The Spark. We also have an author coming up this season who writes fantasy, and it's called Stepping Stone. She's a Tea with Coffee media author. I won't give too much away because her interview is not out yet, but her book is coming. It's really exciting to see, that genre come and be on our show as well. So that one, I mean, there's just tons and tons of authors out there I can't even talk about because I've read so many of their books. It's great stuff. There was a gentleman that kind of got me into it too. They're all on our website. You can go on there and check them out. There's like a whole list of fantasy novel people and historical fiction and memoirs. We've got memoirs this season as well. So it's a great long list of individuals that contribute to that genre in the writing community, and I encourage anyone to check them out. They're great folks, just too many to name.
Don't worry, Stacy. Amigos y amigas, Stacy nos comenta de los escritores esos independientes que ella conoce, pues realmente son muchos que ha entrevistado en The Writing World Podcast y pues realmente no podía decirles. Puede comentarles también, por ejemplo, Stephen Stone es una muy buena opción, su libro muy pronto se va a estrenar. Again, with Deborah Harness, I think it's not independent, but it's a nice option for the ones that want to read their stories. Another author, Stacy, I think in the independent world in Latin America that is writing these fantasy novels, I recommend really, again, Santiago Garcia Cairac. It's not an independent too much, but it's the one I read as a kid. And he really makes really great stories of fantasy. So again, I told you the last time he wrote the book of The Invisible Book. That is very interesting. It's a fantasy one. And I really recommend that author, and I think it's very, very good. Amigos y amigas, le comento a Stacy que estos escritores independientes, bueno, pues yo ahorita no tengo tanto conocimiento, pero, por ejemplo, Santiago García Clairac, insisto, creó estas historias del libro invisible que eran de fantasía y pues nos llevaban a diferentes partes. Also, Stacy, the authors that really I think are important to say on these fantasy stories. I think I have to recommend those anonymous writers in the books I read as a kid from the government when I was learning as a kid. There were many stories, Stacy, as you told me. There are many examples of these authors that I don't know their names, but created many stories, such as a kid that had to bring gifts to another kingdom. It's a book I remember in the Spanish book, and also I remember a medieval fantasy one that was about one prince that traveled into a magical castle and encountered these different creatures. I remember it was called Juan Sin Miedo, literally John without fear. I think it was a great book. If you can read it, please take it as a recommendation. John without fear o Juan Sin Miedo. It's a really great story. Y amigos y amigas, pues con esto concluiremos este programa de literatura actual. Hay tantos, insisto, escritores, tantas historias estas de fantasía, que a final de cuentas lo que importa es que ustedes estén atentos a ver a estas novedades, ¿no? Y por supuesto, ¿por qué no animarse? Friends, at the end of the day, if you want to create these stories, please share it to the world. Stacy is going also has a great program with the Writing Wall podcast, season 7. I think season 7 is coming, and also she can recommend you many other authors because she has the most contact with these great writers, not only fantasy ones, but also of different genres. Any last words for today's program, Stacy? ¿Algunas últimas palabras para hoy, para terminar?
That is it. Just thank you all so much for tuning in to Literature Today. We hope you'll check out The Writing Wall. Also check out Dario's latest book, Lap Dancing, and my latest book, Patriots Ridge.
Of course, Stacy. Amigos y amigas, pues Stacy nos recomienda de nuevo Patriots Ridge, su gran libro y por supuesto su gran podcast The Writing Wall, con quien ellas se pueden acercar con muchísimo gusto. On my case, Stacy, well, again, please follow me on my social media as Hurricane Darío. And also, for more content in this world of literature and also cultural, you can follow us on Hello Arte and G-Dance TV. Soy Darío Aguilar Peregrina, mi host, Stacy Hawks. Nos vemos pronto y seguiremos aquí contándoles más historias. Nos vemos, amigos. See you then, Stacy.
Bye. Adios.
I never made it, but I know what it's